Welcome to a brand new episode of For the First Time in Forever, the show that continues to duck and dodge cease and desists from Disney. If you're new to the show, this is a series where I get the chance to fill in the gaps on my watch list, and you will get to go,
how have you not seen that already?
Last week I broke the first and second rule and spoke about Fight Club, so if you haven't checked that out already, I will include a link in the description. Make sure you give it a watch. But this week it is time for things to turn strange and peculiar. So climb into your fishnet stockings, have some hallucinogenic drugs at the ready, and prepare yourself for Wait a second. I am going to be talking about spoilers for this film, so consider this your warning now. Patience.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control.
So, where on Earth, or more precisely, where in any galaxy, do you even begin with the Rocky Horror Picture Show? It is undoubtedly the definitive cult film. For many, this film acts like a religion. It spawned gigantic fan movements across the world. Those would attend fan screenings dressed in character, quoting along, breaking all kinds of cinema etiquette rules. But at the same time, any time this film was shown in cinemas, and it continues to this day, it's an event. The following this film has is unlike anything I've ever experienced before, and that was somewhat daunting, because if I didn't like this film, does that mean I'm going to have to add Rocky Horror alongside Sonic fans to fandoms that hate me? Thankfully, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, because above all else, this movie is entertainment down to a T. How do I even begin to describe this, though? Like, a newly engaged couple stumble across a castle housing the most outrageous group of people, one of which being a transvestite doctor that brings to life a man for his own sexual intentions. And it also features Meatloaf being both Meatloaf and an actual meatloaf. Oh, and the eventual revelation that they're secretly aliens. Well, I guess you explain it like that. I'm by no means estranged from watching anything one would consider to stray from normality and pride itself on its originality. In fact, I actually welcome it. So when Rocky Horror hits its stride into that surreal realm of peculiarity, I was on board for the ride. I didn't quite have a clue what was going on, but I didn't really care. Trust me, it is far better to embrace it than to challenge it. Because you can spend your time trying to analyse this film and uncover its many themes and messages. You can try and view this film as a pastiche of classic Hollywood horrors in which a young, naive, virgin couple enter this creepy gothic house in which it's led by a mysterious figure who's got his own nefarious plans, begins to tempt them, and he's then creating his own version of bringing something to life. You can try to view this film as an over-elaborate analogy for self-love and trying to find the person right for you. Because as RuPaul said, if you can't love yourself, how the hell are you going to love somebody else? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Thank you, Queens. You can even try to view this film as a way to embrace people for their differences, no matter how far they stray from the norm. You can spend your time doing all of that. But in my opinion, the best way to experience Rocky Horror Picture Show is just to let that all go. Leave all expectations at the door, go along for the ride. It's utterly mental and pretty much plotless, but that didn't hinder my enjoyment in the slightest. Now, from a sheer filmmaking perspective, Rocky Horror is really impressive. The practical sets are elaborate and eccentric that kind of embody the characters that reside within them, as are the costumes. The way the film is shot as well is leagues different to any other musical, not made just at this time, but kind of ever. It's filmed in an almost exploitive sense, yet still maintains a sense of majesty and grace. And it's brilliantly meta, especially with Charles Gray as the criminologist who's kind of narrating the unfolding events. The music is a brilliant blend of rock and roll, punk, funk, and also kind of develops songs that don't really apply to any predetermined music genre, and so they just kind of exist within this Rocky Horror bubble. I actually wasn't familiar with many of the songs. I didn't even realise just how much of a full-on musical this is. I mean, I'd heard of Time Warp and Sweet Transvestite, but the other songs are just as catchy and infectious. As for the performances, now this is where the film treads a very fine line and could have tipped into really schlocky B-movie territory. Thankfully, it has a knowing wink as to just how much lunacy it's playing with. Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick are the central characters, they're the central pair, and for the most part, we are watching everything unfold through their eyes. They are about as normal as characters get in this film, but even they succumb to the temptation of falling down the rabbit hole. Richard O'Brien is really quite terrific as Riff Raff, who plays this Igor-like henchman to Dr. Frankenfurter. Now, this entire production is O'Brien's love child. He created it as a stage musical in the early 70s and then came on as a screenwriter and producer for the film adaptation. So seeing it translate, and you could tell how much passion and joy he's put into this, it comes off on screen. It looks fantastic. But of course, this film would be nowhere near as iconic as it is if it weren't for Tim Curry's performance. Watching him steal every scene as Dr. Frankenfurter is gobsmacking. He commits to every single frame he's in. There is never a dull moment when he's on screen. The reason why you buy into this bizarro land in the first place is because he is giving it his all. Not to mention, this dude slays it in heels and stockings. I also really dug the humour in this film. Like I said, it's really got a meta, knowing sense of how ridiculous it's being. One of my favourite parts in the movie is where they're all just saying each other's names over the top.
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rucker! Kenneth!
Dr. Scott!
Janet!
Brad!
Rucker! Donkey!
Okay, maybe the donkey part wasn't included, but you get my drift. I am hesitant to say that this film is perfect, however. Elements of it are quite dated, although I guess that is part of its charm. And I do think the first half significantly outweighs the second half. The first half has just this captivating sense of bewilderment, bizarreness, and you're just hooked in. And unfortunately, as the film sort of grew past that halfway mark, that initial infectious attraction, that enticement, it did slightly begin to fade. I still had a blast watching it, but it wasn't hitting as many of those euphoric highs as the first half was. Ultimately, you're only going to watch the Rocky Horror Picture Show if you want to. If you're undecided or hesitant, this movie will chuck you to the curb and leave without you. Tim Curry is the absolute highlight here, and the songs are a very close second. It's magnificently ridiculous and positively bonkers, but in life, I always find that eccentricity always wins out, and in this case, it definitely does. So, after watching the Rocky Horror Picture Show for the first time in forever, I'm happy to say that it's worth it. Right, there we go. Those are my thoughts, but what are yours? Let me know what you thought of the Rocky Horror Picture Show in the comments below, as well as any movies on your watch list that you're still not round to seeing yet. I mentioned this in my previous video, but I'm hoping if this series does continue to be a success, then I want to get some guests on. That way we can treat it more like a dialogue, a chilled out conversation. We can talk about a couple films that either neither of us have seen or one of us have seen, and just discuss it. If that does sound interesting to you and you want a feature, let me know on Twitter, drop me a message, and we can try and figure something out. Anyway, here's what you can look forward to next week. Thanks for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, please make sure that you click that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All the links to my social media accounts, my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my letterbox are all in the description below. And if you haven't liked the video, what are you still doing here?